Here in 10 seconds. Here we go. Yep. Now call to order the Committee of the Whole of January 9th, 2023. The time is 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Volt?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Waring is absent, 6 present.
Motion to excuse member Warren.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Daryl, started off with community and economic
All
development.
right, we'll make this pretty quick here. What you have in your packets for the description is what I would just call it, a technical change. We are moving the fees, schedule for fees for plan reviews from one section of the code to another. If you'll take a look at page, excuse me, page 8, you will see that we are moving them. In section 1, it says that we're moving the sections 117201 A through H. And we're going to park those in chapter 1301. It's important to note that these fees have not changed. And also that sections A through H find themselves now in a redesigned section 2 and 3. So the items are there, they've just been repositioned for better clarity.
These are your phone.
Administration, do you have anything to add, Patrick?
Just to note that for the record, you just said plan reviews, but it's for building permits and other related
I'm sorry.
services.
Building
As well.
permits.
And then we think this will allow us better administrative oversight. And so it should be put in more in the council's
Yep.
domain, in the mayor's domain than in the planning commission.
Questions or comments?
When was the last time those rates were reviewed?
2011.
2011? Do we need to look at possible raising those, or are those the across the county type?
We're going to conduct a study later on in the year, but we need to evaluate via the other communities what's going on, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But in the meantime, we think I don't know why they were put in the planning commission's realm, but we think that this is more appropriate. Thank you.
Dave?
Good.
Christine?
Good.
Good. Mr. Stroy?
Good.
Mr. Orr?
Good. I'm all right.
I'll make a motion that we authorize this for an agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to move this to the planning commission?
Okay.
Or no, wait, okay. No, sorry. I read that incorrectly. My bad. Yeah, that's good, okay.
So we're good.
You're up on the next one.
Okay, item 2, which is item 3B on the agenda, is a resolution endorsing and adopting the 2023 master plan for the city of North Canton. And by popular demand, I'm going to be quiet and turn this over to Christine.
And I'm just going to talk for a minute and turn it over to the real expert. So the master plan is an effort that was started about 2 years ago. There's been a lot of conversations with community leaders and residents, and it's resulted in this roadmap here, which is in the agenda packet. So basically, this is a collection of ideas, the best ideas that we have right now for the next decade, up to maybe 20 years. But of course, I think the important thing with this is that it's a vision for now. That doesn't mean that it can't be edited. That doesn't mean that we can't come up with better ideas. It doesn't mean that we're not always learning. But I'm really excited about the way that it's come together and the input that we've had from the community for some of these ideas. And I think it's a really forward-thinking plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Ben and Patrick. I'm not sure which of you, but both of you can walk us through and tell us more about the goals and objectives and what we're looking at.
So as Christina said, the master plan is a roadmap for the next 10 to 20 years. So our last master plan was in 2012. I would say 80 to 90% of that master plan has been accomplished largely in the last 7 to 8 years. And the master plan before that was 1992. So right in that 10 to 20 year range for the last two master plans. For this master plan, 4 goals became very quickly apparent from all of the feedback from various surveys, community meetings, the steering committee. And those goals were to build a more vibrant downtown core, to cultivate a business-friendly community, strengthen the North Canton community identity, and maintain and improve our high standards for our city services. So in pursuit of those goals, the master plan puts together a number of policy recommendations. So this isn't set in stone that these things will happen. These are ideas for what could make the city better in the future, and all of them will require their own legislative action. We've grouped the policy recommendations into 3 broad categories that reflect really the 3 realms of city influence. So the community, the economy, and city services. And this seems really simplistic, but it is a really great way to organize how these things interact with the residents and local government. So to start off, community. Community is, in my mind, I think of it as the phrase small town America. So these are the types of things that you think about when you think community events, walking out in your neighborhood, feeling like you belong here, that you want to be part of the city. And so the recommendations in this area focus on creating that active downtown core, creating a sense of pride of place so people are happy and proud to live here in North Canton. And then the Walsh connection, because Walsh is a very important part of our broader community. So active pedestrian core, sort of how I'm going to go through this, I'm going to hit 9 key policy recommendations, one from each of our 9 areas. For active pedestrian core, our sort of key policy recommendation is the pedestrian square. So it quickly became apparent in talking to community members that the 2 main areas of the city where most events and community life happen are the town square at the intersection of Main and Maple and Memorial Stadium. Those are the 2 anchors of our community life. And although they feel very distant from each other, they're actually less than half a mile away. And so what the master plan proposes is connecting them with pedestrian-friendly streetscape improvements in sort of a square. So 7th Street, Wise Northeast, East Maple, Main Street. And so this makes it, doing this would make our community much more walkable. It would connect these 2 hubs. And then based on census data, 40% of all people who live in the city live within half a mile of this square. It will also soon connect almost every single school facility in our city in this walkability. Connects City Hall, it connects the library, it connects the YMCA. It's really just a great way to make our community more walkable and connect our the 2 sides of the heart of our community, I guess. Our next sort of smaller category is pride of place. So as I said earlier, this is getting people to love being here, recognizing that they feel like they are an important part of the community. And so our sort of key policy here is bringing back actually an old program that used to exist in North Canton and was at one point discontinued, but with a different twist of community beautification awards. So recognizing people that go above and beyond to make their own property look amazing and contribute to that sense of community. And our recommendation is actually, in bringing back this program, instead of putting it on the administrator as it was last time, put it on the 4 ward councilmen to pick somebody, say once a quarter from their ward, that is doing a great job maintaining their property for special recognition. Next is the Walsh Connection. Walsh is either our second or first largest employer. They bring in more than 2,000 students to our community every single year. We'd love to be able to keep them here, to contribute to our community, not just North Canton, but the greater Stark County. And so we want to build connections to the university. And so one of the best ways we think we could do that is completing the East Maple streetscape. So if you say take a walk down East Maple, there's pedestrian-friendly streetscape, roughly to the far side of, if you're starting in the town square, roughly to the far side of the Hoover Company, and then it drops off, and then it picks up again at Marquardt at the University District. So you've got sort of this gap in the middle. So our biggest recommendation in this area is to fill in that gap, to take the pedestrian improvements all the way down East Maple, not just to try and entice Walsh students down to our downtown core to spend some money in our community, but also to make it feel connected, and there's already a lot of people who walk there. So that's community. Our next broad category is economy. We already know that North Canton is a well-established brand. We see that because many of the businesses that are actually in Jackson Township sell themselves as being in North Canton, not Jackson Township. So we need to focus on how we can build on that brand to compete with the townships around us for these businesses. And so our 3 sort of subcategories in economy are downtown support, redevelopment with purpose, and opening the door. So downtown support is all about making sure the businesses that are on our main street have the support they need to succeed in our local economy. And so our key recommendation in this category is a facade grants program. This is something that's been talked about pretty much since I started working here for a while. And it has sort of two goals. First is to help local businesses potentially make needed improvements to their facades, replace windows, replace doors, coat of paint, that sort of thing. And then second is to promote a more cohesive look on Main Street. So right now we have a very disparate look. There's not a lot of cohesion, and a lot of the communities that we heard in our feedback the community members want to be compared to are places like Hoover, Cuyahoga Falls, or not Hoover, Worcester, Cuyahoga Falls, Hudson, where they have that more cohesive small downtown look. So this would be a way to, by offering facade grants to people who are willing to move into a more cohesive look, you can help businesses redevelop without punishing people who don't want to be part of that cohesive look. Next is redevelopment with a purpose. We're small. We're pretty much landlocked. We all know this. Thanks to legal changes in the past 20, 30 years, annexation has become a lot harder. We really need to focus on how to make the best use of the land we have. And so our key recommendation here are some zoning changes to expand what commercial area we have. There are 4 areas identified in the master plan that are all could be turned commercial. They're already border commercial areas without greatly encroaching on neighborhoods. And then in addition to that, as sort of the next phase in our ongoing efforts to piece by piece rewrite the zoning code, we should really look at our residential code. And what you see on screen here is an artist rendering of what some more medium density housing could look like. So our code right now really only allows low density or high density. We don't really have that sort of medium option, a row house or a brownstone or something along those lines. Third in economy is opening the door. So this is making it easier for businesses and residents to move into our city. Why do they want to come here? Make them want to come here. Our key recommendation here is a community entertainment district. Although lots of people don't know it, as we have learned from our surveys and talking to community members. North Canton is dry. And at least I think that is part of the reason that we have struggled to attract places like the John's Bar that recently moved, because it is a big risk to come to North Canton and potentially get a liquor permit if you're on the ballot. So what a community entertainment district does is it creates a special area. I believe Oakwood Square in Plain Township is one, and that's part of the reason they attracted John's Bar, where the city controls a limited number of liquor permits. And so businesses could come without that fear of, will I get one on the ballot? And the city could use their limited number of liquor permits to cover them until they get on the ballot and pass a ballot measure, or until they prove they're not a responsible permit holder and get it revoked. And so we can cover up to 75 acres in a community entertainment district. The one you see on screen that's proposed in the master plan is 73.8 acres and would cover most of the North Gateway district, with the exception of known areas that are going to develop without the need for a liquor permit. So the new Meijer will not be serving beer in the Meijer. They don't need to be part of the entertainment district. The new park that we're planning to build, we're not going to be serving beer in the park. It doesn't need to be part of the entertainment district. So our third and final broad category is services. North Canton has, thankfully, a great reputation for its services. Our average rating for all services was 85% on the last survey. But we can't just rest on people are happy with the services. It takes a lot to maintain the services, and it takes a lot to improve services as new challenges arise. So for this category, recommendations focus on safety services, development services, which is our permit and buildings department, in case anybody doesn't know that. And then our sort of big idea for this master plan is community broadband. So first, safety services. Our police and fire departments are excellent. They are consistently the two highest rated services on our community surveys for a decade running. They consistently receive higher than 90%. But the buildings they are in were built in 1970 for departments that were much smaller and much more volunteer. They simply can't keep operating in these buildings. And so the key recommendation is to look at what is a way that we can either upgrade existing facilities or find a new facility for them to go to, because there will eventually come a breaking point. Next is development services. Again, this is North Canton's building and permits. And what the city has heard in the past is that our permitting process is difficult. It is hard to get to, and presently for a lot of permits, you must physically go to City Hall. You must print out a piece of paper and show up at City Hall. Unlike a lot of other communities, we have very limited online options. So our key recommendation for our building and permits is to build that online option. Have the ability for people to submit their application and their building plans and pay their fees online without having to take off work and come into City Hall and turn in their permits. We've already started rolling out this software with the city's rental registration program, burn permit program, civil service applications. So we're building on this already, and it can hopefully help catch up to the 21st century in the near future. And then finally, as I said, the sort of big idea is community broadband. So the internet is a necessity of life at this point. I mean, right now we're live streaming this meeting to YouTube, and that requires the internet. Other communities in Northeast Ohio have created municipal broadband networks, so they've treated the internet as a utility. This may or may not be the right thing to do in North Canton, but right now it's sort of a golden window to explore it, because there are billions of dollars of federal grants on the table from two recently passed acts, the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act and the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So even if the community ultimately decides, no, we don't want this, now is the time to explore it, because if we do want it, now there's money on the table. This is definitely a long-term goal. For example, Fairlawn, which is widely considered one of the most successful community broadband networks in Northeast Ohio, took 10 years to build out their network to where it is now. So it will certainly not be a quick effort. So implementation. Some of the things in this plan are already in motion. It took us 2 years to write, and you guys have already passed the budget before then, so we slipped in some of these things that we thought were good ideas, such as the Wise Avenue streetscape improvement. Others are going to take a long time to materialize. So community broadband, if that's pursued, it's going to take a long time to materialize. So the last page, 25 of the master plan, outlines the rough time frames that all of the recommendations in the plan are intended to take. So short is 0 to 2 years, medium's 3 to 5, long term is 5 or longer, and then ongoing has already started. And these timeframes are intentionally written to reflect the fact that some of these things will build on each other. So that is a very quick, broad overview of the master plan and the sort of 9 key facets of it. Patrick, any closing thoughts?
Just remind the council, that what I'm sure the mayor was going to make some comments as well. Thank the mayor for appointing a committee to start the process. And under the leadership of Bill Strominger and the assistance of City Council, we were able to get, I'll call it a blueprint put together, which was presented to council some time ago. And from that point, needed the interaction with administration to figure out what of these things are doable and what things are really beyond our reasonable ability to put into a plan to happen in the next 10 years. So that committee met for most of the summer last year on a regular basis, working on these ideas, vetting them out with others, coming up with a draft, and then it was Christina and Ben who then carried that across the finish line and getting something for you in final draft form here tonight. So it's a heavy lift, and we thank all of those individuals who were part of it. What's important about a master plan, and I've had this conversation, really with all of you at some point, and those of you that'll be here long after I leave this place, not in a bad way, but just like I can go do something else, is how important your administrative infrastructure is. Because honestly, you can have a plan from 2012, but if you don't have the personnel with the skill set to implement it, it isn't going anywhere. It's all just an exercise in nothing. This was so important is that we do have that ability now. I'm not just trying to say to toot my horn. That's not what this is about. It's just that we've developed a lot of skilled personnel. Ginny here, we've just added another person this week, one of those administrative assistants that we had put into the budget. And, with Ben and everybody else in our team, we're able to do this lift. So whatever the policy decision that comes from the council, comes from the mayor, that's the direction you choose to move, I feel reasonably certain that we can, lift that marker and move it forward. It's just wanted to make sure that those of you that'll be here down the road, that's always something in your mind, is that it's not so much that you always have to say micromanage, but you have to make sure that the place is managed. Thank you for that opportunity, Mayor.
Thank you, Patrick. And I just want to re-emphasize that this is a path forward for us. And as you've heard the word as a roadmap, I just want to go back and again thank when we contracted with the Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative at Kent State University to get us started on this. And I appreciate the input the council has put in over this last year to bring this fruition. And again, these are recommendations for our city government, all with the purpose to strengthen our community and just continue to improve for the future. And I think this is probably the best presentation of this master plan I've heard. And we have actionable items here already that we can go after. And again, this is all for the betterment of our community. And that's why I have my full support for going forward with this master plan. But also I just asked council if they will have an opportunity or take the opportunity to review this within the next year, whether it's 6 months or a year from now, to see where we're at. But I want to thank the team that worked on this, and of course, are reaching out with our community partners, our leaders, and our community citizens, the surveys that we've had over the last 2 years to present a master plan for our city to go forward for the future. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Ben, could you put a follow-up for 6 months, just to know? By legislator or something.
We have outside community support. Did we have outside community financial support originally for this?
Yes, we did, from the Hoover Foundation.
Yes. Just as a thought, Mayor, you may want to consider inserting into this document a letter that acknowledges the process and the support of the Hoover Foundation for this. It was integral in getting the project launched. It's provided support in the past for other plans. And I think it would be good if the community recognized that contribution.
Very well. Yep.
Okay. So does anyone have questions? Of you up here?
No, I think it looks good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Working
presentation.
committee, the administration.
Good. So then I'd like to make a motion to move item 3B to the council agenda, but with an edit on page 17. We list Street Paul's instead of St. Paul's. That's okay.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to finance and property. Stephanie is ill, so I'll take a principal discussion here. Gina and Patrick, if you'd like to weigh in on, this is the purchases over $50,000 that need to be approved by the Board of Control.
Yes, so in the 2023 budget, we had a list of over $7 million of capital items that were approved with the budget. And so these are the items individually. There are some that are not on the list because those will be bid separately, such as infrastructure projects, water, sewer, street. Our city engineer, Rob Graham, will bid those out separately and those will come to you separately. But this is the list of items that department heads would like to start ordering and start working on. And so once council approves this, it'll go to Board of Control, it'll get approved, and then we'll be off and running.
Patrick, would you like to comment on any of that?
Then Bill said,
So if you see on section 1, under that line, there's all the A through W, the breakdowns are the ones that are over 50,000.
Page 43.
Page 43, thank you. Questions, comments, thoughts? I'll make a motion that we move this to the agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 4B. This is a preparation for current expenses. Gina, if you'd like to weigh in on that.
Yes, it's January and we already have an appropriation amendment. Can you believe it? But we do want to get started on the right foot, and we had some major projects that have changed. If you remember when we built the budget, the city applied for quite a few OPWC projects and grants and cooperative projects with Plain Township, and they didn't receive their grant. So we don't want to leave this amount of money in the budget because we're not spending it this year. We will reapply for those grants or find other funding for some of these projects. The 115,000 from municipal road funds, we'll actually carry that over to 24, combine it with 24's allocation. So we'll be able to do a bigger project next year with those funds. It's not that we're losing these funds, we're just holding off until we know where different pieces of the projects will come into play.
Makes sense. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, I'll make a motion that we move that to the agenda.
Will second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 4C. This would be the streets levy. Patrick, would you like to comment on any of that?
Yeah, so, we've been, brought this up during our budget discussion that, we recognize that, roads, as we're talking about 4C, are an item that touch every person in the community. One of the things that we've been trying to do is, make sure that the city services are being paid for by those that use the services. That's a general idea. We saw, as you know, when I came here, we analyzed the mayor's court, saw that it was, operating in the red, and asked ourselves, why should somebody who doesn't have a ticket, never gets a ticket, have to subsidize those that get tickets? So we shipped that down to municipal court in Canton, and granted, the fines are much, much higher than what they were here. But now there is no drain on the general fund as it relates to what was the mayor's court. So, here, we look at it as the most appropriate place for this is a property tax levy. We recognize that everyone in the community pays property taxes in one form or the other. If you're a tenant, it's likely reflected in your rent. But everybody in the city uses the city streets. And so we need to do that. The millage that we have been getting was bringing in approximately $375,000 a year. We've showed you some graphs and charts from before that, and in mid-December, we opened up our bid packet for 2023. And, to no surprise, the cost in just 5 years is putting us in a position where instead of doing, maybe 5, Ben, do you have a graph of that, or?
Yeah.
I had to do something. So we see that in 2018, we were doing five miles of road, and the total amount spent was $557 and change, which resulted in about $115K a mile. And, we look to 2022, and as you can see, the number of miles being paved is being reduced each year. The cost keeps going up. And now our cost per mile is up to 208,000, almost double just from 4 years ago. And that didn't even include 2023. So the bid opening that we had did come in roughly at what Rob had projected, and those costs are still at 200,000 plus for each lane mile. So this is a formula that we just have to be honest about. It just doesn't work. It isn't going to work long term, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. As these costs keep going up, you're not going to be able to relatively keep the streets intact. Now, we know that some streets, that are in off the beaten path, so to speak, last a lot longer. We count on that. But those that are more frequently traveled wear down faster, and we need to do something constructive about it. Now, some of those things we've done, we get the bids out earlier than any other community does. That helps. By having projects ready, we end up getting extra grant dollars because other communities aren't prepared to move forward with projects. We keep consistently doing those things. You've heard Rob Graham talk about how we take road projects and now we're regionalizing them within the city. You may remember, for those of you that have been around a long time, Daryl, that this process used to be, somebody up in Ward 1 got some, over in Ward 2, over in Ward 3, Ward 4. There was a lot of political dynamic to it based on the council members trying to get what they wanted in their ward. So, we've had to push all that aside. Years ago, we went to a rating system, right? But that still rated things around, and we still, utilize a rating system. But when we go to award the projects, what we're doing is just picking one ward. So last year it was Ward 2, this year it's Ward 3, where a lot of the activity is going to go. Because what we don't want are having to pay the costs associated with traipsing equipment and setting up all throughout the city. It's just not cost efficient. So we do that. We're blessed that the council has given us the ability to hire additional personnel in the street department and acquire the necessary equipment to take on some of these paving projects that are small into areas where we might never reach and do those internally. So we started that last year, practiced on that, did a number of alleys to rave reviews, alleys that would never be touched. How can we do an alley when, in absence of doing a street that's more regularly traveled? So the goal is to get real good with that machine and operating it, milling it, paving it, and then being able to utilize it in some areas where maybe not as part of the general paving program, but in some other parts of the city where the road, it might not make it till it gets back around there. And there are some, maybe just a one lane traveling in a west direction for 200 feet needs replaced. That's something that we'll be able to do for just the cost of the asphalt. Much more economical. So we hope to be able to get that number up, but it still is not going to be enough long term to push us forward. So in talking with finance and with our department, we thought that the next step would just be take it from its current level and up it so that it's basically going from 1 mil to 2?
Yeah.
Going from 1 mil to 2 mil. And that would roughly bring in 750,000. That can go, today's value would bring in $1 million. And that goes a long way towards getting these roads. And what we like about, at least what I do, just from my perspective as being your administrator and having served on city council, what I think is a key feature of the levy is that it tags the money to that project, to the street. It's not raising the income tax, which has a number of deleterious effects. But aside from that, that's money that just goes to the general fund that any future council could spend any which way they wanted to. And that's not really good accountability to the taxpayer. With the property levy, tax levy, it holds us accountable that those streets, that the money's going to those streets, and likewise with the when we talk about the next item, the same thing. So with that, we think that that amount would do well. And this all just ties back into, just as I'll dissect it a little bit further, is with the economic development. And what we're trying to do with, getting new development dollars, whether it's schools or manufacturing facilities or it's, retail sales. Those, tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars of redevelopment generate new taxes that corporate America, essentially pays the bill. We know how they get their money, through consumers using their products or their services, but it also spreads out having to hit the taxpayers up to a direct levy. So these are things that going forward, why we're so focused on growing the capital investment base in this community. It hasn't been done for a long time, but it really will make a meaningful difference for when this levy comes up in 5 years, in my opinion. And that's another thing. We don't want to make it a perpetual thing. It's something that the voters need to hold people accountable to. And after 5 years, if they approve this and giving us that blessing to move forward, we do a good job, they'll come back, they may renew that then. And we may not have to ask for as much because we've been able to develop some of these other projects. So that's the thinking that went behind it.
Any comments, questions?
Well, one thing that we will be able, I really feel that we'll have to do for the election, before it, we have to educate the voters out there. Without education, it'll be voted down. Because, who'd ever think a dozen eggs is almost $5 a dozen now? They're looking to feed themselves and stuff of that nature. But I think with education, this is a great plan. Thank you so much.
And Ben, might you comment on the notice we got through Columbus regarding the changes in the ballot language?
Yeah. So last September, the Ohio General Assembly passed a new law that changed the form of ballot language. So some of you who have been here a long time might remember old ballot languages just said the millage. So it just said 2 mills for the benefit of the city of Canton. Beginning this year, all property tax levy ballot language must state the revenue that is expected to be gained, so the $1 million, and it must state the dollar amount per 100,000 of home value. So when you go to the ballots this year, you'll see for any tax levy you vote on, not just in North Canton, 2 mills for the benefit of the city of Canton expected to raise X amount of money, equivalent to, in our case, $70 per 100,000 in the first year. And that in the first year caveat is because as new property gets added to the pool, existing properties taxes go down. So the best sample I can give for that right now is the valuation we received from the auditor's office for both of these levies does not include the new Meyer building because it hasn't been built yet. Once that building is built, it will add several $1 million to the pool, thus lowering everybody else who's already in the pool's percent share. So the $70 will only be $70 year one and will go down, presuming we successfully pursue development all 5 years. It will go down each year after that.
And we should note for the record that the $70 that Ben is saying is that will come from the new. Right now, we already get 26. So what we're talking about is a $44 increase on that $100,000 worth of value. So less than $4 a month on something like that.
Sure.
I am prone to wander aimlessly through the community in the mornings. My wife has a wonderful app which tracks our mileage.
I thought you said wonderful app. I thought it was like one of those Pokemon Go apps.
No,
Okay.
not one of those. She has the app, I don't. Just clarify that I haven't joined the 21st century yet. But I think Mr. Rohr would be interested in my morning walk this morning. And would you go back up to that chart, please? We're gonna do what? 1.5 miles. I walked Lehigh, Westfield, Orchard Hill, and Heatherwood this morning. It's about a mile, according to the app. Those 4 roads, depending upon this winter's weather, will require repavement at some point. Lehigh, Westfield, Orchard Hill, and Heatherwood don't have any curbs and gutters. The margins of the road have collapsed in places. So, to Patrick's earlier point, if we had curb and gutter, we could probably get out and slap a repair on it and extend the life of the road. What we're going to look at is you're going to have a mile's worth of road that will need it. And it's not going to be on this year's paving cycle.
Wow.
So my point is that if you look at need and if you actually get out and walk around, you'll find that there are streets that are in desperate need of assistance. Lehigh, for example, by Orchard Hill School. It's got 3 houses. It's a wreck.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's the community's call. But the
Right.
roads are in, if we were doing 5 a year, we'd be in pretty fair shape, but can't. Bunch of
Right.
Main Street,
Right.
south.
Yeah.
You know, I think just to piggyback on the comments that you two gentlemen have made, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, nobody wants to raise an income or a property tax. I mean, who wants to pay more taxes? But at the end of the day, the money's not going as far as it used to. Just like John buying eggs, I mean, it's a necessary evil that we move this forward. And as you said, Daryl, you know, leave it up to the voters. So, but I think it's a good plan and I support it.
Christina, David, thoughts, comments?
So for me, it's a positive in the sense that the work from home and working in North Canton, just 2 days a week, I save enough money to actually pay for this and then some, because the tax rate where my office is 2.25%. So it's a benefit for me to work from home, and putting those dollars into the streets where I live, the curb and the gutters, next conversation, the sewer and the water, that infrastructure where I live is more beneficial than tax dollars where I work. So I think there's opportunities there. I think community as a whole has changed. I think there's several people in our several residents that are working from home and taking the benefits there. So hopefully we can share these numbers in a sense that they can see where it's not a major increase in actual dollars, but it is a major increase in number of miles of road that we can get paved. I think with what the administration has done with putting together the curb and gutter equipment and the street paving, and as we build on that, the residents are going to see their dollars being put to use, and they'll see the value that they get from it.
Yep.
I agree with what John said. I just think, you know, getting behind the marketing of this. I mean, who wants to say you're marketing a levy, but we're marketing a levy. We're selling something, right? And I think if we can just somehow articulate that, you know, you got to build the community you want to live in. It's not magic. It's unfortunately.
And I think the point is that this particular levy supports residential streets. Use grants for paving the major thoroughfares, and the engineer has been remarkably successful in bringing in millions of dollars per year repave the major thoroughfares. But no grants are available for residential streets. It really falls on the resident, for Dave's point.
Mm-hmm.
And our alternative is doing road by assessment. Is a bad word.
Just since you've mentioned that word, In another life, I had an opportunity to travel through cities in northeastern Ohio. There was one which shall remain nameless, where the streets were paved by assessment. It was horrible. Some streets were great. Other streets looked like you could have filmed a World War I sequel. They were so pitted and rutted that any effort to repave, any effort to repair the street was a waste of money because you couldn't keep the asphalt in the pothole. And the street would have had to been completely rebuilt at more expense for the property owner to get it paved. I don't know whether they still do it or not, but the community did not show well. And I think consequently, to Patrick's earlier point, struggled economically to attract employment to the community because it looked like a bloody dump.
Yeah.
Well, it's a ballot issue. The residents are gonna have an opportunity to speak.
They're gonna have a chance to weigh in.
Yep.
Absolutely. Our job is to take the issue to them, lay out the facts. It's their community. They make the call. That's it. We need a motion.
I will make a motion to move it to the agenda.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then moving on to 4D, this is our sewer levy.
Yes, so this is for the, this is for stormwater, storm sewer, storm drain. And likewise, we know from the two floods that we had in 2022, one in February, one in May being, very significant throughout most parts of the city. We've recognized that there are improvements that we can do. I've outlined some of those before you. We talked principally about the 4 retention basins that the city has to be able to, even just increase the depth, just say a foot, increase the bank higher. We're certainly not talking about making the Great Wall of China. It's going to be intrusive, but just those little things over the size of these, can result in, hundreds of millions of gallons of water being retained. That's better than not doing it, right? So, we're engaging with a consultant to help us model and calculate out what benefit would be in terms of water retained, and then, at what cost to do that. We think that that's probably an easier one to do, really, because we think pretty much anybody with a bulldozer and a front end loader or whatever can take it down, kind of thing. So that's a good thing. Others are going to require more work, more money. I continue to meet with residents. I met with the Meisners last week or two ago, I guess it was now, and talked a little bit more about their specific situation and roundtabled with them some ideas, some of their own that are things that we should examine. And not in their particular situation, but in other situations that I've spoken with people and identified, I have to ask myself how it came to be that structures were built where they were built. How did we permit that process decades ago before any of us were here? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And what we may end up, what may make sense if these become chronic and continuous problems is that the city may have to do a program similar to what we saw with what Stark Parks did with buying up properties along that flood bank down there on Linwood and whatever to tear down those houses. Because that may be the only real solution that can be had. So there's a lot of hard questions that are being asked and policies that are being thought out to bring the council to talk about. But all of this, likely is, I'll say, in vain, if you will, if we don't have the funding to be able to do it. Again, this levy only brings in approximately $375,000. That's what we have to work with. Anything else comes out of the general fund. And, you know, that's what we keep saying all the time, it comes out of the general fund, and eventually there's nothing left in the general fund to do what it's intended to do. So, to do that, we're also recommending that this levy be increased, an additional mill, brings in the same amount, you know, a little bit plus of $1 million, that we think could meaningfully address, you know, flood defense, providing and maintaining a flood wall or pumps and other stormwater improvements that we could do.
I believe we mentioned in last month's presentation that the dollars collected will actually be in the 2024 budget for spending, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And like the other levy, the roads, this all, the sewer.
That's correct.
Mhm.
Not-
If I may add, these conversations were at length, and we did listen to our citizens who suffered drastically from our flood there in May. And this was all through lengthy discussions and coming up with a plan that we felt that we can present to our citizens for a vote. And a levy was the option that we chose. And as Patrick has discussed on the last two issues, they have my full support to go forward in presenting this to our citizens and let them vote on this to see where we stand. But it's one way for us to try to address the issues that we have with, you know, water control and taking care of our roads.
And we should also note on that, of course, we're looking for this to go to the May ballot, but that none of the funds that are raised through this, nor as they have in the past, none of these funds go towards payroll.
Right.
It's all hard assets.
Construction.
Mhm.
Just for the record, I think we should also point out that flood impacts are multi-ward. We had serious impact in the northwest corner of the city.
Correct.
We had some fairly significant challenges over on the northeast side of town. I would argue that probably that may be where, in fact, the engineering challenges may be the greatest, given the topography. Maybe that's something the consultant will address. But the bottom line is that we've got issues, certainly on the northern part of the city, from Maple North
Mhm.
all the way to the corporate line.
Yeah. And
Right.
you know, we acknowledge what you're saying, but we also need to, you know, frame that some of that water that comes into that northern part comes from a part north of us.
Absolutely.
It comes this way, and we have to deal with it, just as people south of us have to deal with ours.
We may not have, at the end of the day, a complete fix, to your point. It's one of the reasons why the county constructed a decade ago all the retention basins up near the airport. Slow the water through the Zimber ditch. We still have flooding.
Mhm.
But this will help.
This will help.
Yes.
Things like, what we partake, a couple months ago, cleaning
Yeah,
out
we
the
did the Zimmer cleanup. Yep.
you know, Zimber cleanup,
Mhm.
different organizations, so
Mhm.
to start.
Good motion.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Parks and Recreation, Christina.
Okay, so we have been asked by administration to kind of acknowledge what could be a problem in the future. The city was contacted by a for-profit entity that wondered if they needed a permit to operate within our parks, to hold like a for-profit class, right? It was like a day camp, right? And we've never been asked that before. So they brought it to us and would like us to just kind of discuss it, put it on our radar. Is this something that we should have a plan for? I'll be honest, my initial reaction was like, no, we want vibrancy in our parks. Let's have everyone use them. I don't care if people are making money. And I think that because we don't have a recreation department, right? Like we don't have a department that's running yoga classes in the park and doing day camps and things. So of course we want people to be using the parks. But I made some further research, and I'm speaking for myself. This is definitely a discussion for all of us. But I think what other cities have found is if you wait for it to be an issue, it's going to become an issue. So there can be damage to the parks. There can be, people can't get in with their families to use the parks because there are CrossFit classes happening in the parks. So I think, we have a couple of options, right? We can wait and see, does this become a problem that we need to deal with and tackle it then? Or we can be proactive. And I don't know, in professional life, like the library, I like to give our staff the tools they need to answer questions when they come, right? So rather than having, someone call Ben or call Catherine and say, do we need to do this? My opinion is maybe we do need to look at establishing some sort of permit fee and liability policy to deal with this. But then there are questions like the YMCA, I know, is set up in Whitworth Park a lot of the summer, right? They're there with their day camps and they're eating lunch there. And, I don't want to oust the YMCA or upset them. Tom Todd's Camp What If, another nonprofit organization, is there using the parks during the summer. So just a discussion to be had.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of, you got the schools who walk the kids down to the parks, but we've already sort of set some type of standard by registering food trucks, which is a private business to go into the park across the street.
Right.
Have we done any surveys where the percentage of the people that are in the park, how many are actually our residents? A lot of people travel from different towns to use our parks. A lot of people, even the park,
Dogwood.
in Dogwood, you get people from all around.
Mm.
So it's something we really, I think, need to discuss.
Well, and
to your point, with facility rentals, a lot of those are from out of town people.
Mhm.
From out of town.
Could do.
And I would see a difference in just the two examples that you gave, the YMCA walking the kids over to go play on the playground compared to having a CrossFit class.
Yeah.
I see those as being two different things. Maybe it's just my mind, but it
Profit
definitely
and
is worth.
nonprofit.
I'm sorry?
Profit
Well,
versus a nonprofit.
not so much
organization.
profit, nonprofit. If a class is going over to play on a playground, my kids can be over there playing with them too. But if somebody is staking out an area of grass and saying, hey, we're having a CrossFit class, you can't come in it, that's where I see it as being two different things. So, but I agree, this is certainly something worth talking about, looking into further.
yeah.
Do we have separate fees for nonprofit and profit? For like shelter rentals or park rentals or anything like that?
No,
Mm-mm.
the council has addressed that over the years, to call our history. Nonprofits and profits, pay the same rate. And what I want to caution the council, and I willfully brought this to the council because it's a policy decision, okay? But that doesn't mean that because I brought it here, I don't have an opinion. But, I just want to caution the council on any policy thing that they do to take into account, the administrative lift to make something happen. So like we just say profit versus nonprofit. Okay, so how should I verify that you are a nonprofit? What source am I going to go to? What effort am I going to expend? What personnel time am I going to devote
Right.
to sorting that?
501c3 or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then,
That take time.
likewise with this, it seems fairly benign that, one of the first parties inquiring is a yoga instructor. That's fairly benign. But what happens when it isn't benign? what happens when it's a leaf and gutter people, the ones we love to go to during the Main Street Festival? That they want to be there, setting up camp for a day. What position are you putting us in administratively to kind of differentiate which businesses can, which businesses can't? It's almost an impossible task.
So essentially you're saying like we need to, I guess, recognize the risk that if we open it up to something that is permittable, then suddenly it's permittable.
Yeah.
To everyone.
What's the liability aspect on, let's say, a CrossFit group coming in and someone getting injured on steps similar? I mean, I know this has been talked about in Canton with McKinley Monument. Do we have any liability issues like that in opening that
Well,
up?
I mean-
I mean, I believe the parks are for public use, but I also don't want to take that use away from our residents who are going to use it.
Right. I won't touch on that per se, but try to answer your question about, what is the liability extent? And because we are, in essence, leasing space out for a fee, it puts us in a different liability
Sure.
exposure according to our attorneys than if somebody's just transgressing in the park on their own and they somehow are injured. So ultimately, what it's going to come down to is who has the deepest pockets, right? Now, we can certainly ask for that if you are going to do this, that you have a certificate of insurance that shows that you have general liability coverage. As you know, I have some background in that field. And then there's various things that you just don't want the certificate. You want to be named as an additional insured under that policy so that you're protected as if it was your policy. And to go through that administrative step to make sure that all of that is done before somebody comes on and that they have the proper limits.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah. Speaking about liability, if, say tomorrow, barring the fact that it's January and cold outside, but somebody goes and has a class tomorrow and somebody gets hurt, we're not regulating it, we're not leasing space, how does that change our exposure?
It takes us off the hook.
Okay,
There's your answer.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
there's
you're
your
exactly
answer.
right.
I think of, like a Girl Scout troop or a Boy Scout troop or the Girl Scouts wanting to have a day camp. How do we accommodate, something like that because they're a part of our community? Or a Boy Scout district wants to have a day camp, maybe for just 2 days or something. I know our parks are safe and that's why people come here to use our parks. Many of them are from out of town. But yet I just keep something like that in mind. Where's that balance as we just, throw that into the conversation? Or it could be, I don't know, it could be a reading group or something, but, if they have a rented facility, that's one thing. If it's a rent of our shelters or something, that's different, but, if they're working out of that shelter, then they may have a little bit more of the camp or the park to use.
On the fishing,
Just to
rodeo,
stir it up
it's
here.
probably one of the biggest events we have across the street. Children from all areas come, and I think it's the Eagles or the Elks or whoever sponsors that. We're not charging them at all to use the pond, and they're stocking the fish, or
No, we
The
stock.
city.
we stock the
We
fish.
stock.
Mhm.
It's the mayor's fishing rodeo. There may be prize sponsors, but this is a city event.
City events.
And a question I get asked all the time, particularly a certain time of the year, and the time's coming up, from the Girl Scouts. Oh, we would like to set up in front of X and sell cookies. As much as I love Girl Scout cookies. Maybe so, but I have to say, no, you can't go on municipal property and set up to sell because you actually established that then precedent that, how do I say yes to you but no to the leaf and gutter guard? They want to set up on city property.
So is I'm guessing we have park rules, right? Like, I mean, I know at least in Dogwood, there are park rules established. Seems like is that the way that we go? with this. It's just making sure that we have good rules in place. And then if someone's destroying the park with their CrossFit class,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
maybe.
it's-
I mean, to me, it hasn't been a problem yet, but
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think we keep the discussion open,
Mhm.
address it as it comes by. I mean, I don't want to limit somebody's use specifically or charge somebody a fee. It's going to be a nightmare to maintain. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but that's my
Yeah.
feelings about
Okay. What do we need to do with this? Matt or Ben? Someone.
it. The table.
Sounds like we're just letting it go for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a correct understanding of where
Yeah.
you all?
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can always bring this up at any
Yep.
time. At any point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's move on to personnel and safety. David.
So this is a resolution appointing Terrence Seeberger to North Canton's representative. It's for a 5-year term starting in March. Terrence has been on this since 2008, I believe was what was told. He is enthusiastic about maintaining that position. He's an active member on this board. Mr. Seeberger is an attorney in Canton. Him and his wife Kay both live in North Canton. They're residents here. They speak for the North Canton area. As a resolution to appointing them, I see nothing with continuing the fine work that he's been doing. Anything you would like to add?
Nope, you did fine. Thank you very much.
He's the mayor's nominee,
Yeah,
so.
he's my
yeah.
nominee. He hasn't missed a meeting since he's been there. And Kirk Norris spoke highly of him as our commissioner. So he has my full endorsement, but I want to make sure we go through the right channels.
Yes,
So thank you very much, David.
so I will make a motion that we move this resolution to the agenda.
Volt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will start the committee, the city council meeting here shortly.
Matt, did you want to give these guys a chance?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, we'll order the city council meeting of January 9th, 2022. The time is 8:20 p.m. Opening prayer, Jake.
All right, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Revolt? Member Stroya?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Matheny? Here. Member Waring is absent, 6 present.
Can I have a motion to, I'll make a motion to excuse Councilwoman Waring.
Roll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I have a motion and a second to approve as presented minutes from December 1st with an edit on page 2022, or page 22, sorry.
November 11th on line 23 should be November 6th.
Move to approve.
Roll seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from December 5th? The hearing and the committee meeting, December 12th, the hearing and the council meeting, and the fiscal year 2020 final appropriations, and also the December 2022 Q4 finance report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, members of the public wishing to address council may do so. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. Comments shall be limited to legislative agendas appearing on legislative items appearing on tonight's agenda. The rules for speaking items appearing on tonight's agenda. The rules for speaking will appear on both screens. This will serve as the only warning for everyone in attendance. Any violation of the rules will result in ejection from the premises. Anyone wishing to speak tonight?
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I've got a laundry list of things that have been discussed and are across both agendas. I'll just start out. First of all, I had an inquiry from my former council president regarding the appointment of Terrence Seeberger, who apparently, I'm told, does not live in the city. I believe Marcia Kiesling formerly held this position years ago. So the comment, Mr. Snyder, I'll just go ahead and tell you that, wondering how you can appoint somebody who doesn't live in the city in this position. So I'll just leave that with you. Many of the questions and comments tonight regarded revenue and taxation. A lack thereof, really, for the city. And yet you are pursuing a TIF, tax abatement for a
I
multi-millionaire
don't believe
owner of the
so.
former Hoover property.
I've lost it.
Let's agenda. What does a TIF have to do with anything that was on the agenda today?
A TIF takes away from your efforts to get taxes.
Not on the
The two
agenda today.
levies.
That's not on the
The
agenda.
two
today.
levies are on the agenda. And this is my
Stick to the
background
levy.
comment.
That's a different, isn't that the committee meeting?
And it's gonna be on the vote tonight, to put them on the agenda.
No, they're not on tonight. Am I looking at the right one? We got
We discussed it in the
67,
committee of the
68,
whole.
69, 88, 03, and 04. None of those are valid. Maybe.
So anyway,
Please stick to the legislative agenda.
I am. The comment earlier about the lack of curbs and gutters. That goes back to what I've been saying for years. Your abnormally low income tax rate has put you in this position. You have not been able to provide these needed improvements infrastructure-wise because you keep the income tax artificially low.
I don't see that on the agenda.
Yeah, this,
I mean, you're
It's
either
not-
gonna have a
Chuck,
rule
that's
or
you-
you're not
that's you.
gonna have.
You violated the rules twice now. You have to leave the premise. That's unfortunate. It's a simple rule, and you know it. And
These were
you're
discussed,
going, this is the legislative agenda. The committee of the whole is not the legislative agenda. That's the committee of the whole.
the levies are on tonight's agenda to be passed.
Show me where.
There's a sign here.
Well, they were just discussed.
Yeah.
In the
of whole.
committee.
Yeah, I don't see them on the council
And you're
meeting.
combining a lot of these discussions between the two meetings.
Mr. Osborne, the official agenda states that this is the regular council meeting for January 9th, 23. There are items of old business, 7A, B, and C, D, E, and F. That's the old business. The new business is items 4A and 4B, which carry over from the other meeting, correct? And those items are, Mr. Clerk?
Items for bid under Board of Control approval and supplemental appropriation.
So, to your point, sir, those items are on the agenda, and therefore you are out of order.
And that's my last comment. Under recognition of the public legislation on agenda items only, that needs to be ended.
Frank, could you escort him from the premises, please?
Brad, can you just close up my camera here?
Sure. I got you.
All you have to do is close the door.
Check the, where's he gonna drop it off?
I'll be right.
You'll be off.
Okay, can you bring it by my house?
Sure.
This is ridiculous. This is not a representative body of the citizenry. You attack the citizenry. You're very adversarial to the citizenry. And this is sad.
Anyone else wishing to address the public? Okay, last call. Seeing none, moving on to old business. Ben, would you please read ordinance 67-2022?
An ordinance amending chapter 1125 definitions, specifically division 1125.02A25 driveway private residence and chapter 1133.08 single family and two family residential district regulations, specifically subsection 1133.08C additional regulations for garages, parking areas, driveways, and vehicles of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton to allow permeable pavers as a permitted driveway and accessory parking paving surface in residential districts.
This item has been well discussed here in the council. It has been to the planning commission. This came by Mr. Matheny. This is only the second reading of 3. I don't believe that any member of council or the administration has gathered any opposition to this. We regarded it as a responsive approach to address the requirement for paved surfaces and driveways when there's a project. This was a good step. Dave, do we need to add anything more?
I think you've covered it. It's gonna add the third, whether it's asphalt, concrete, and now permeable pavers as an acceptable surface.
And we should note that permeable pavers are used successfully in both commercial and residential projects in this area. So if there aren't any other administration?
I just would like a point of information on council procedures. I'm curious, since we have had no input from the community, we've been discussing this since like at least October. Is there a way that you can just pass it on 2 readings? I'm not saying declare it an emergency, but some rules requiring 3 readings, and just have 2
No.
readings and they're signed. Is that allowed?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
The charter has to.
The charter explicitly exempts from that type of rule, the enactment, amendment, or repeal of any zoning.
Gotta have the room.
So,
It just wasn't zoning. We good?
Mhm.
Could we, or
We cannot.
not on this particular one, if it wasn't zoning, we could,
sure.
we have 3 readings so the public can speak about it.
It's also stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know.
Friends and family approach to residential development. So we've had that technical question answered for the administration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I'll make a motion that we adopt the second reading of ordinance 67-2.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 68?
An ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 1151 signs of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton.
Okay, Derek? Okay.
As we all know, we have the administration with the assistance of Mr. Young and our building department has redrafted the sign code. This is the second reading. To my knowledge, we have not received opposition to the proposal. And actually, that's actually in the next ordinance. But the fact is that we believe, and I'll just summarize, that the new signage better serves our goals for Main Street and allows us to intelligently regulate other signs. How does that sound, Mr. Terrell?
That's fair.
And again, it goes to this notion of, what's your lift, what's your manpower, what are your permits, that sort of thing. So we think we've got a pretty good approach to this. But to get to the new one, we've got to repeal the old one. And so 6822 repeals the chapter in 1151.
In this one.
This ordinance. Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt the second reading. 68-22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Ben, would you please read ordinance 66-2022?
69.
69, sorry.
An ordinance amending chapter 1136 Main Street District's regulations of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton to repeal section 1136.17 signage in its entirety.
Gerald, you're on.
Okay. Well, I think we've discussed this. Any questions or comments, administration? If none, then I'll make a motion that we adopt the second reading of ordinance 69-22.
Second.
Seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 88-2022?
An ordinance establishing chapter 707 mobile food units of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton, thereby establishing regulations for the operation of mobile food units in the city of North Canton.
Steve?
So this is the third reading on this. We've discussed it a couple of times. It's allowing food trucks in Dogwood and Price Parks. Any questions or further discussion?
Administration.
Yeah, I'd just like to make for just a point of edification based on my reading of the ordinance with some groupthink this afternoon on resolving a particular inquiry as it related to this. And I think the way the ordinance is written, it gives me the latitude to set this up, but I just want to make council aware of it. So right now, we you know, looking at start 3 spots in Price, 2 in Dogwood. And we were thinking of that in terms of on a first come, first served basis. But I believe that I'm going to set up at least one space in Price, 1 space in Dogwood can be reserved. And here's why. So we were contacted by a local business today that said, hey, as a way of, saying thanks to community marketing my business, I want to hire the Pav's ice cream truck to operate at Price Park on a certain day in July. Okay, so as now we're working through the logistics of this today, I'm saying, well, how is it that Pav's would want to man a truck, put the stuff in it, and then go to Price Park and then there's no space because other people have gotten there first? That won't work. So in a situation like this where this business is trying to utilize the North Canton business and promote their own business with it, that if we had a reserve space, and if by 11 a.m. that space is not occupied, maybe they don't show or they cancel and don't tell us, then it would be free to be occupied. I think I just wanted to make sure the way I think that we interpreted it today, I have the ability to designate one of those spaces of my own, and I want the council to be aware of it.
I think that's a good idea.
Through the registration process, like the rental agreements and the burn permits?
The way we're going to work it right now is an online process to get a permit to operate, and they have to be inspected by the fire department. That permit and that inspection is good for 12 months. And that when those permits are applied for and approved through administration, they will go to our individual who is handling rec rentals, and they'll book that on our online reservation system that we use for all of our other rentals, so that any of us, including the public, were to go in there and look and see, they can see, oh, well, that space is reserved, it's not available. So like if you wanted to rent the Dogwood Pavilion, we encourage, we've been doing this a few years now, we've gotten it pretty much that 98% of our rentals go online and do the rental, and they can see what dates are available. Our intent is to put these there as well. Most of the time, it'll be for these other spots, it's first come, first served, they're just gonna stay open. But for the one that's reserved, we'll be able to reserve that space.
People
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah.
Food trucks that put that inventory in it and hire the people to have a space at one specific dates.
Question. This ordinance would not preclude a food truck from parking on a public street and conducting business, would it?
It does not.
Okay. It's just thinking that if we ever had a really big event, was 3 spaces enough? But if they can go to a side street, there's an escape valve.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know Councilman Orr is looking at, potentially getting us to the other side of Price, which we're not opposed to. Let's just see what kind of reception we get, and if it's something that seems positive, then it makes sense. Let's open it up on the other side, so that people that are down at that end don't necessarily have to walk all the way up to Maple Street to get their frozen confection.
Well, we talk about master plan community events, and I think it would be really cool if we had a really robust food truck Friday once a month.
Yeah.
That would be just really, really cool that you could go down, particularly in the summer, grab your hooligans, grab something to eat, let them run amok in the park. No liability insurance required.
It's a great idea.
But I see this in other communities
Yep.
that have tried this approach, and it seems to be pretty successful.
And I think when we get into, at some point, we're successful in retaining the community outreach manager. these are some of the things that we can look at. So like, for instance, you know, one of the things that we've tried to reserve was, you know, up there where we have the commercial buildings on Hull Road, the offices. And by the way, we have like 100% occupancy there now. But where the Duke station was, we had that all removed. You did that internally, planted grass. And our vision was to put those rainbow picnic tables that we have out there, and then try to organize some type of food truck event periodically where it drives it to that location. Parking between the CSB Bank, the old post office, that space. It could be something exciting that is just easily done if we just like the spark, someone will run with it.
Back to, I got a question about the so I'm a food truck, I register. What prevents me from, you know, filling out all the dates or something of that nature? How will it be done on a Monday, a Tuesday, you know? You say first come, first serve, but if you're the first one in there, you might just be clicking away.
Well, for the spots that are non-reservation,
Right.
it's gonna be who shows up there first in the morning and gets it. Early bird gets the worm.
Okay.
The one that's reserved
Is up to you.
You know, that's, we're reserving that spot for the whole day for that person, so they can come. You know, if they're serving ice cream, they don't wanna serve it at 8 in the morning. They wanna be locating there at about 11 maybe to be able to start serving ice cream in the afternoon, or whatever. But we would reserve that space. They would know that from looking online to our online rec rental program, to see that that space is available. They could reserve it. What would prevent Maslin Plaque from sponsoring Kona Ice to be there every Monday throughout the summer,
Right.
and you wanted to reserve that space? You could. Are you showing up? That would be what we'll be looking at. Or are you just reserving a space and it's not being utilized? Then we would have to tweak this as we go. We recognize, John, that some of this is going to be that we just have to see what happens and make adjustments accordingly, because we're doing something that has never been done you know, anywhere around here that I have a model to work from. Being pioneers here, so we beg for council's indulgence. But if we have to come back and tweak some things, that we do that.
Thank you. Tweak Dora.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. So I move that we adopt the third reading of ordinance 88, 2022.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to, Ben, would you read ordinance 03-2023?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to release McKinley Applegrove Limited from performance bond obligations established by a commercial bond as authorized by ordinance 38-2022.
Okay, this is my committee, and this is to release the bond. There's nothing new. This is very standard. I move that we approve the second reading.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 04-2023?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to enter into an agreement with McKinley Applegrove Limited, thereby accepting its maintenance bond to guarantee certain maintenance improvements in the Sanctuary Phase 5 development.
Okay, this is my committee again, and this is the where we're entering into the maintenance bond. Again, very standard, nothing new. Comments, questions? I move that we adopt the second reading.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion and a second to suspend Council Rule 23 to allow for considerations of items 4A and 4B from the preceding committee without a committee report?
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you read ordinance 9-2023?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Administration of the City of North Canton to advertise and receive bids according to specifications established by the Department of Administration and authorizing the mayor, upon Board of Control approval, to enter into contracts for the completion of those projects and purchases over $50,000 and budgeted for in the 2023 annual budget as adopted by ordinance 83-2022 and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Since Stephanie's not here, I'll take control of this conversation. So this is to, we discussed this before about the Board of Control, and this is for purchases over 50,000. Any additional comments, concerns, questions on this? I move that we adopt the first reading.
Both seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you read ordinance 10-2023?
Are you gonna pass an emergency?
Yes. Let's skip
Motion,
over.
Revolt moves to suspend.
Oh, do it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requirement?
Nope, next
Oh,
one.
yeah. Same thing. I printed this myself. So that's fine. Motion and a second to adopt ordinance 9-2023 under the suspension of rules.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oops, sorry about that. Ben, would you please read ordinance 10-2023?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of funds of the City of North Canton to be appropriated for current expenses during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Okay, again, Stephanie's not here, so we just discussed this. Any new thoughts, comments, concerns? I move that we adopt the first reading.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 10-2023 under suspension of the rules?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to department reports. Patrick.
Okay, well, I would just like to share with you that today I celebrate a work anniversary. Today marks my 5 years as your city administrator.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Pleased to have been able to serve and continue to serve. It's been the first 5 have been a very heavy lift with all the things that needed to be done, but I appreciate working with all of you and with the mayor to keep moving the city forward. We have lots of huge opportunities that we're capitalizing on this year particularly, and I hope that we can cohesiveness. I've never been so proud of the people on the administrative side that we have, the young people that we have, like Gina and Jeannie, Jennifer. I try to hire people that, all have the same starting name. That way when I mess it up, I got a good shot at it. But, they are just the young professionals, Ben and the others. This is a unique time in our history, I think, where when somebody comes in, they're actually being able to come into a place that's functioning, that we can actually even, answer calls and keep right people, the basic, necessities that we've been executing on. But, now we're getting into some more of the more complicated things, we talked about in this master plan, the community entertainment district. That's going to be a lift internally that we put together, and we wouldn't have been able to do that years ago. For those of you that will be here, down the road, I've said this to some privately, I'll just say it publicly, it matters, the qualifications of the people that you have sitting in this seat. And I'm not saying that I'm the be all end all, I know I'm not. But those that come after me, you want to make sure that you do have people that can manage and that can execute and keep that progress going, because it's so easy to slip back. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor Walter.
Well, thank you, President Sawyer, and follow up on that, Patrick, again, thank you for the last 3 years of our association. I've challenged you with many, many things to go forward for the city, especially for our economic development and our land banking for repurposing. So at any rate, it's been, you've been very beneficial to me and a confidant, and in many things that we've been working on. Special event coming up is the Mayor's Cup Challenge between Walsh University and Malone University, and I will be there. Unfortunately, Walsh hasn't won the last 2 years, but that game is going to be Thursday, January 12th. The women's game begins at 5:30. Men's game will follow at 7:30. So Mayor Burnaby and I, we have a challenge between each other. But right now, there is, you can go online though. There's the challenge between the two universities as to raising money for the athletic department. And they look strictly at the number of donors versus the amount of money being raised. Right now, Washington University is behind in donors. So if you want to, you can donate $1 or whatever you want. But I was just asked to begin to share that challenge. You can go to Walsh University's website and look for the Mayor's Cup Challenge. And if you feel like donating to support our hometown university, please do so. Right now, we have 1,301 donors. They've raised $17,009 as of this afternoon. So I just want to share that with you. And I want to thank council again for presenting the master plan for us tonight. And that we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's been quite a journey these last 3 years, and I think we're still on the cusp of good things that you'll be seeing coming through this spring. So thank you very much.
Before you pass it, you want to mention
Well, yes, Patrick brought to my attention. I was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission has a annual mayor's breakfast, and I've attended it the last 2 years. This year, I've been asked to be one of the MCs for the breakfast. That's also going to be on Thursday, the 12th. It'll be at the DoubleTree in Canton, and it's a distinct honor for me to be invited to be one of the MCs, and I'm looking forward to that event because he is one of our nation's greatest leaders. And it's an opportunity for me to share the video that I did for that presentation, along with all the other mayors in Stark County that were given the opportunity to share a message about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I will be there Thursday morning as part of the program. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Gina.
I just want to touch on the fourth quarter finance report. Our income tax ended the year with a 19% increase over the prior year. So that's, of course, really good news. And remember last year we showed a decrease of 8%, but we had some companies file on the 3-year loss carry forward. So that didn't happen. And when we average or normalize that out, our withholding ended up being 65% of our income tax. Individuals are paying around 24%, and net profits are 11%. And I think we'll see some of that change as we do some more business developments. And so that is on the bottom of page 2 if you want to keep an eye on that going forward in the next couple months or couple years even. The general fund balance on page 3 on the bottom, I did make a note on there. Remember, we combined the income tax fund into the general fund because in the past, we receive everything to income tax fund and we transfer it, and it's really duplicating appropriations and duplicating receipts. So we're eliminating that fund going forward. It is combined in the general fund for audit purposes, for financial reports at the end of the year anyways, and so we'll just be reporting our books the same way going forward. So in the bottom where we list the general fund balances, you'll see a significant increase next year because it's the two funds combined. And I'll
Is there
explain
any
that.
way, I'm sorry to interrupt, is there any way to see what those combined funds were on these reports?
We will actually. I think I'll redo this chart starting in January, starting in February for January's month end, and we'll include both balances so that you can see those.
See the comparison too, thank you.
Absolutely. And then I just wanted to touch on our investment portfolio. You know, we know rates are rising finally, but then on the other hand, they're costing more to borrow money. So good and the bad with that. Our portfolio right now has a duration of about 1.57 years. As a government, we're only allowed to invest in things 5 years or less, and certain things are 2 years and less. So we do have a short-term portfolio, a very safe portfolio as outlined in Ohio Revised Code. So we follow that very closely. Our market value is around 23.4 million of our investments. We estimate our interest income around 264,000 a year, and our current average yield is about 1.62, which of course we'll see that increasing as some investments are maturing, and we'll replace those with higher interest rate investments. So also included with the quarterly reports are the actual finance reports. If you have a chance to look through those, it should include the check report for the fourth quarter, the revenue report, the cash position report, and the expense report. We'll be reporting all of these to the state auditor's open checkbook again. So website, or I'll send you the link, but you can find any government who put their checkbook out there, but the checkbook will be out there again.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Great work. You always enjoy reading these, especially when they're up 19% year. Ben, John Sneed.
Yeah, I'm done sneaking. Thank you. I have no report. I just want to note when you get to your calendar that on the 23rd, we'd like to add a committee. So it would be a double up, just like tonight. We had some things get submitted after the deadline for this week's committee last week that have come up.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Council reports. Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't really have a report this evening. However, I did want to note, and hopefully Chief Kemp can carry back my thoughts and recognition for today being National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So please tell everybody that we really do appreciate the work that they do and keeping our community safe. And that's all I have today, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jamie. David.
So under personnel and safety, congratulations, Mr. DiLorio, in 5 years. One thing you left out of some of your comments was the communication side of the position that you're in. It's communication to our residents, and I greatly appreciate the communication that you have with me and the questions that I ask. So that's one of the characteristics of a good leader and good leadership. So thank you for that. A couple of other things. So in our last meeting, Sergeant Buzzard was here about the engagement team, and our fire department and police officers participated in a shop with a firefighter and a cop event at Walmart on December 17th. So since we weren't here for that, it's one of those things that they're doing in the community and being part of the community. And based on, that engagement team, I think those are positive things for our community. We had 2 new full-time firefighter paramedics appointed on December 21st. Renee Hardgrove and Joe Reyes, is that correct? That's correct. Both of them were part-time employees prior to that, but on the 21st, they were both promoted to a full-time position. So once again, we go back to the staffing and the people and those great people that work for the city of North Canton that we should be very proud of. So that's my report.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, a lot of residents have reached out to me, some different issues that I've brought to Pat and Matt. So hopefully we'll be tackling those. I want to thank Daryl for walking the streets of the 4th Ward and letting me be aware of some of those streets. I knew they were bad. I'd like to say a big thank you to our street department. What was it, 2 weeks ago? It had to be hectic out there, and it was with how they cleared the streets out, and people called me up and said thank you, and that's probably one of the best things North Canton is known for is its street department, and keeping those streets clean. So I need to call down there and thank them personally, but, that's my report tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Daryl?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know because many of you are new, it's been your first term. I think it's appropriate that as Patrick marks his 5th year, that we look back over the last 5 years to completely understand the huge effort that the administration has made to get this community on the right track. We took Arrowhead from a major embarrassment and loss to a profitable operation that is, I think, one of the most attractive municipal facilities in the region. Little known is Patrick's effort to straighten out our IT situation. Not a big deal until you realize that people could hack into our water system and played havoc with it. It was all. In terms of personnel management, much of the success we enjoy today is because Patrick re-envisioned the legal services that we were receiving and came up with, I think, what was a winning solution. Second is that Patrick has the talent to recognize the abilities younger people can provide in this community. And we've got the department sprinkled with new talent. I might add that those individuals are now managed, whereas in the past they weren't. Economic development, Diebold 2.0 wouldn't be here without Mr. Diorio. And I can assure you that there are times when he was probably ready to pull out his hair with Meyer as we came through COVID and sought to repurpose that site. It's important to note, as we talk about income tax revenue, that we may have as many as 750 jobs between Diebold and Meyer, plus others that come along. And a successful land banking program as well that will give us the scale to add to the tax base. When was the last time we had a complaint about our building department? Safe build. 5 years ago, it was a wreck. Major personnel issues, major service issues. We've got it well on its way to resolution, part because of the people, part because of, for example, some of the work that Mr. Young's providing in support. And then just look at the major legislation that has come through the administration. Rental registration, signs, code enforcement, master plan, and I could go on. Stuff doesn't fall out of the sky. It reflects real hard work and, as Dave alluded, the ability to communicate with a broad group of people to identify problems and come up with solutions, and to put the team together in place to make it happen. Our part's easy. All we have to do is say yes at the end of the day, because the heavy lifting has been done on the administration side. Looking back over 40 years, I can tell you that the type of conflict and tension that existed between council and the administration does not exist today. Trust me, that is a huge blessing. It allows us to operate efficiently and effectively as a team. As Patrick's heard me say often, I think the great thing that has come out of this administration is what I call the one-team effort. If you follow activities in other communities or news in other communities, they're rife with conflict. We are blessed not to have it. In large part because of the efforts the administration has made. So, Mr. Diorio, I say congratulations. You've done a great job. Chief, you've probably heard this before, and I'm going to say this, and this is my wrap up. Many citizens don't realize that they can go online and advise the police department that they're away on vacation, and the department will come by and check their homes. I'm driving up from Nashville in a state of post-traumatic stress, having spent 2.5 weeks with 4 grandkids. I get a call from North Canton. It's one of our officers asking me if I was home yet. No. He says, take your time. I just want you to know that I've been checking your home and everything's in order. Think about that a second. Pretty cool. Our guy picks up the phone, and this is again part of this community engagement business that we may not hear about. But it's important that our residents understand that our police are here to serve us and they're partners in our safety. So, Chief, again, I ran into the crew the other day in the lobby and I thanked them. But I think it's important that we all acknowledge that. That it's more than sometimes just hanging a door hanger, and it's not to denigrate that because it's important. The reality is these guys are doing their jobs every day. It's my long-winded report.
All right. Thank you. Christina?
So I made a note to discuss during my report that, as Patrick was saying, kind of following you here, Daryl, it's been here for 5 years, and I was looking through the expenditures that we're sending out for bid, that we approved to send out for bid today, and how exciting are those projects, right? Like, and those things, like, it's money, so, you know, it's money that we have to spend, but those projects are things that people in administration have done and put together for us and this council and prior councils, and I'm just really proud of that. And same with the master plan, looking at things that are in there. I mean, these are ideas that got smart people coming together and talking about how to move this community forward. And the fact that our police forces keep our community safe enough that they have time to drive by your house and, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are several wins there. So just I'm proud of us. I love being here. I love being part of this. I will not be here next week. I'll be having surgery on January 23rd, but we're back after that. And I, unfortunately, because of that, will also miss the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association conference, where Catherine and Brian Hill and I think Patrick and the mayor are going down as well. We'll be there to receive our first place award for capital improvement for Dogwood Park. So I'm bummed to miss that, but it'll be great. And I know we're up for winning something else, right?
Yes, we are one of 3 finalists for the Governor's Award. The Oprah has been down to interview and do some filming of Catherine and Brian Hill, Superintendent of Parks. And we were asked to put a video together, which Catherine did, and that'll all be presented at the convention, and we'll see how we fare. We know who the other 2 projects are, one from Columbus and one from Toledo, but we think ours will score very well. So we're excited. We can't wait to come back in February here and let you guys know whether we won or not.
That's all.
Cool. Thank you.
Exciting.
Okay. Matt, Polly, Doug, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Brandon, it's good to see your face over there. 5 years, we should have got you a cake or something. I didn't know. It was 5 years.
Mark the calendar, we'll do 6 next year. So.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Or pie, do a pie day or something. You know, piggybacking off of what you said on his accomplishments, also the school. I mean, imagine 5 years ago what our relationship was with the school. I mean, that's part of the reason I ran, because it was so bad. And now it's incredible. So the relationships with Walsh. I mean, it was a heavy lift. Your accomplishments are amazing. So thank you for your findings. Hopefully, maybe you find more.
When you're done.
You can go. It's on your mind. Do it.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. Again, I wanted to thank council for appointing Mr. Terrence Seeberger. Okay, please understand, he's been representing our city since 2008, and he's been approved by previous councils. And yes, he may not be a city resident, but I'm not aware of anything in our charter that doesn't allow the mayor to make an appointment into that capacity as our representative to the Stark County Board of Health. So, an honorable man, he's been approved by previous council since 2008. And I wanted that just clarified as to a previous comment that was made by one of our citizens.
Yes.
That actually, if I may tell, I can't help it, but that actually illustrates the point that Darrell just made about that the tension between council and admin doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What was referenced earlier was from someone that was their experience in life. And, that member of council served on council and voted for this same individual to serve in this capacity.
I was sitting here doing the
But
math
now
myself.
wants to stir the pot to try to create tensions between the council and the administration. That's what we're talking about. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't get us progress along where we need to be as a community.
Sure.
And I meant Mr. Snyder.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Frank, it's National Law Appreciation Day, but we appreciate you every day, and the NCPD for sure. But 19% increase year over year, that needs to have an exclamation point on it, because who would have thought, coming out of the pandemic with inflation that we're up 19%. I mean, that's very understated, but that shows you the strength of the diversity of our businesses in our community and the individuals as well. So that's amazing to me. So I don't have anything else. I will ask for a final call for new business. Seeing none, moving on to the meetings calendar. We will have no meeting on the 16th, it's Martin Luther King Day. On the 23rd, we're going to have a city council meeting, and we would like to add the committee meeting as well.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. And then no meeting on January 30th. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
We'll hold seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're good.